At this very moment, our forces have stormed into Luhansk with full force. The decisive explosion has finally thundered. A lightning-fast special operation in Crimea, the so-called shield of the peninsula. Our forces took them out feet first. Shock, Trump is hesitating, senators are protesting, and Americans have turned on the head of the White House. Impeachment is breathing down the politician's neck. It's all because of Iran. Donald Trump is dragging the country into chaos and war. Wow, Russians are rising up against Putin. The dictator is sending his loyalists to Siberia. The inevitable has begun. The fire of hatred has been ignited. What is the dictator trying to hide in this way? The digital gulag in Russia is expanding. This is the beginning of the end for Putin's pseudo-empire. Telegram is being blocked and soldiers are being sent on meat grinder assaults. Will the next step really be a public noose around the neck? And all of this happened right now. Hello, I'm Darina Hatsakalo, and we're getting started. Shockingly, this happened while you were sleeping. Ukraine's defense forces broke into Luhansk. The Russians are in a panic. Drones suddenly entered Alchevsk and literally stripped Putin's army bare. Alchevsk, Luhansk region. An attack on the Alchevsk metallurgical plant is reported. However, it seems that the breadwinner of the Russian army is not used to this. Earlier, in early December 2025, this plant was already being flown in, and it was no coincidence. After that strike, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine explained that the Alchevsk metallurgical plant was manufacturing shell casings on order from the Russian Ministry of Defense. Now, however, it seems all of that is in the past. Meanwhile, Crimea is not sleeping either. Could it be that the great liberation of the territories has finally begun? Russian air defense has been breached and cannot be restored. Our forces delivered a lightning strike on a critically important enterprise of the Almaz-Antey concern in Sevastopol. This was the pride and hope of Putin for a peaceful life. This facility was used to repair and service anti-aircraft missile systems. S-400 Triumph, S-300 PM2 Favorite, radar stations 92N6E and 96L6E, medium and short-range air defense systems Buk M2, M3 and Tor M2. Ukrainian drones have accomplished the incredible. There will be no more repairs. The shield of Crimea's air defense, it seems, will now remain full of holes for good. However, this is not the only problem that has completely overwhelmed the Russians. Now they have a problem with their personnel. In the area of Strzelecka Bay, enemy personnel locations were hit. Tension is at its highest level. Could it be that Ukraine's defense forces have launched a loud start to the deoccupation of the territories? We are following the developments closely. Shocking statements by the US president have shaken the world. Senators are expressing their protest. Americans have lashed out at Trump. Has the US president really lost control for good? Donald Trump's approval rating has dropped to a new historic low. Experts are already making bleak forecasts for this year's midterm elections. It won't be easy for Trump. Nothing surprising after such statements. For example, Trump almost openly dismissed NATO. In the US, Trump is being accused of starting a war. The crisis in the White House started from within. The head of the US Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, unexpectedly resigned. In his letter, he directly accused Trump of starting an unnecessary war under pressure from lobbyists.
I cannot, in good conscience, support the war in Iran. Iran did not pose an immediate threat. It is obvious that we started this war under pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. You can change course or allow us to slide into decline and chaos. The cards are in your hands.
The leader of the Democrats in the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, also sharply criticized Trump for his statement about the strike on a school in Iran. Trump claimed that the school, where about 170 people, mostly children, were killed, was allegedly attacked by Iranian missiles. However, Schumer called this statement absurd and accused Trump of spreading falsehoods. Schumer emphasized that many Americans are beginning to doubt the objectives of the conflict amid military losses and economic difficulties. Europe is also not lagging behind and is only adding fuel to the fire. Trump was counting on quick assistance in demining the Strait of Hormuz, but was rebuffed. Germany's defense minister Pistorius essentially quoted Trump himself.
This is not our war.
He was also supported by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. French President Emmanuel Macron, whom Trump had rated 8 out of 10 the day before, also disappointed Washington. In response, Trump did not hold back his emotions. The most sensational statement was made by Donald Trump regarding NATO. He made it clear that the US presence in the alliance is now in question.
NATO is making a very foolish mistake. I was curious whether NATO would ever help us. It was a great test. We don't need them because we are too strong. But they should have helped us.
Against this backdrop, approval ratings for Trump's economic policy have dropped to -29. This is the lowest level in the entire history of this polling cycle, even worse than during the peak of the coronavirus crisis. Regarding the actions of the US president, in the area of rising cost of living, 67% of respondents expressed disapproval, while support stands at only 26%. This is the weakest result on this issue to date. The question of Trump's political future is once again coming into the public spotlight. The further development of events on the geopolitical stage remains in the spotlight.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Urgently, has it already started? Putin is unleashing Oman on his own people. Farmers in Siberia are being suppressed by force.
Please help us. We are sitting here. They won't let us go anywhere. We're sitting hiding. There are so many people here, really a lot. In
the village of Koziha in the Novosibirsk region, a convoy of Russian security forces has entered to crack down on local farmers. OMON and police vans have arrived. Social media is literally exploding with angry messages. The dictatorship has crossed the line and it seems there's no stopping it now. The beginning is shocking. After the introduction of the police regime, mass slaughter of livestock began.
Everything indicates that the Russians are trying by all means to conceal the outbreak of foot and mouth disease in order to prevent the suspension of exports and the total domestic sale of food products.
It should be noted that since March 9th, a major scandal has been brewing in the Novosibirsk region. Livestock are being seized and destroyed en masse under the pretense of supposed pasteurellosis and rabies. Farmers are sounding the alarm, saying that they are not being shown any test results or documents. People are taking to the streets in protest because they are losing their livelihoods right before their eyes. And then the familiar scenario unfolds. Instead of providing explanations, the authorities tighten the screws, conceal details, and put pressure on those who try to speak out. At the same time, in the occupied territories of Ukraine, following the Russian armed forces, disruptions with Telegram have begun. In particular, even when using a VPN, it is almost impossible to make a call. At the same time, problems with Telegram are being widely discussed in local chats in the occupied cities of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Users note that the messenger constantly lags and freezes, although text messages are still being delivered. Some local residents in the chats ironically suggest collectively writing to Putin, hoping for the restrictions to be lifted. Currently, using a VPN remains the only way to stay connected, but even this method is becoming less and less effective. In recent days, Telegram has been constantly lagging. Telegram freezes, although messages still go through. Maybe we should collectively write to Putin. Will he take pity and not block Telegram? Moreover, the Russian army is also moving towards strict information control, right on the front lines. According to reports from soldiers, they are being ordered en masse to delete Telegram from their phones. Control has been assigned to the military police. They check phones within the units. If the messenger app is found installed, the punishment is as harsh as possible. Soldiers can be transferred to assault units, which essentially means being sent to the most dangerous sections of the front. As an alternative, other means are being offered, including the Max Messenger. But the situation appears contradictory. In some units, its use is also restricted or prohibited. Another option is the so-called military messenger Turtle. However, the soldiers themselves admit that it is inconvenient to use and does not meet the real needs at the front. As a result, a systemic problem arises. The Russian army does not have a fully functional and reliable infrastructure or communications of its own and is forced to balance between bans and ineffective alternatives. The soldiers themselves openly say that they need their own secure smartphones, stable apps, and a separate communication system. It's hard to believe. Zelensky instantly took down Russia and Iran. An epic moment in London. The Ukrainian president made the British parliament stand up. The world did not expect this. Our people made the world watch the triumph of the armed forces of Ukraine with admiration. An unexpectedly new defense alliance between Kyiv and London? Did the partners themselves ask for this? Wow, the decision for Ukraine's victory has been signed. Europe understood that Zelensky can make it happen. The first details are coming up. President Zelensky spoke in the British Parliament and brought with him a tablet equipped with the latest data collection and analysis system. This is the world's first example of fully tracking a war in real time.
This iPad provides complete control over the situation. After all, we have a system for using our defense resources. If we need to stop a Shahed in the Emirates, we can do it. If we need to stop it in Europe or the United Kingdom, we can do that too. It's a matter of technology, investment, and cooperation. For example, your military bases in Cyprus. This is what our security proposal could look like. Our experts would deploy interception teams, install radars and acoustic surveillance systems, and all of this would work. Iran launched a large-scale attack similar to Russian assaults. We would guarantee protection. This is the kind of reinforcement we are offering.
Ukrainian experts are already in the Middle East, helping countries defend themselves against Iranian Shahids.
Currently, there are 201 Ukrainians in the Middle East and Persian Gulf region. Another 34 are ready to be deployed. These are military experts. Experts who know how to defend, how to help against drones. Shahed. Our teams are already in the Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and are heading to Kuwait. We are cooperating with several other countries. Agreements have already been signed. We do not want this terror by the Iranian regime against its neighbors to succeed.
Zelensky stated that despite Trump's claims that he does not need Ukrainian drones, Ukraine is ready for an agreement and joint production, American factories and capacities, plus Ukrainian technology and expertise.
I sent these military experts at the request of our partners, particularly the United States. In fact, this is part of the drone deal that we proposed to the United States, which we have been working on together and which still remains on the negotiating table. We are ready to offer similar deals to all our reliable partners. From practical cooperation in the field of drones to future defense alliances. I don't think anyone would want to leave Ukraine's battle-tested strength and capability outside the scope of their own security.
Moreover, Ukraine is a leader not only in interceptor drones, but also in naval drones, which it can also offer to its partners.
We started with simple kamikaze naval drones and then created drones with turrets that can shoot down helicopters. Now we have drones that can shoot down Russian fighter jets from the sea. We have developed boats that carry other drones on board. There are also boats that strike land targets from the sea. We are developing more stable drones that can operate longer and more efficiently. Operate at sea, not in a bar and not in the distant future. We will have them. Systems capable of operating even in ocean conditions. In addition, we are also dedicated to the active development of innovative subsurface maritime systems.
But for now, two important questions remain open for Ukraine. These are the war in Iran and the possibility of losing US support along with ballistic missile interceptors. The president of Finland has already voiced a possible solution to the issue at a press conference.
Why shouldn't Europe consider approaching Trump and propose a deal saying, why? If you need help in the Persian Gulf, fine. But here is exactly what we would like you to do in return regarding the situation in Ukraine.
I think that's actually a really good idea. I'll take it into consideration. I really do think it's a great idea.
Yes, on the one hand, Ukraine can be used as a testing ground for opportunities. On the other hand, if the war drags on long enough, the whole world will feel a shortage of interceptor missiles. Because drones are being shot down, Iranian drones with extremely expensive Patriot missiles. Because there have to be other methods to counter drones. And it's very strange to me that the American military, who for 4 years could have been observing how the Russian-Ukrainian war was changing, apparently weren't watching anything at all. They were living in some kind of their own world.
Well, and the second big problem, the European loan of 90 billion, which is still being blocked by Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán. He has already stated that Ukraine must let oil flow through the bombed-out Druzhba pipeline immediately.
They are killing us, and yet we are supposed to give oil to Orbán because he, poor thing, can't win without this oil, the election. We hope that one person in the European Union will not block 90 billion or the first tranche of the 90 billion and Ukrainian soldiers. And there will be weapons. Otherwise, we'll give this person's address to our armed forces, to our guys, and let them call him and talk to him in their own language.
But be that as it may, it is clear that Ukraine's authority in the world is only growing, and Europeans are increasingly ready to provide support and now also to benefit themselves in the form of Ukrainian defense technologies. At this very moment, tensions in Moscow are sharply rising. The situation has reached a boiling point. The internet is filled with cries about harsh restrictions and total control. Life for Muscovites has turned into hell. Putin himself almost never appears in public, and this only intensifies the sense of anxiety. Shocking decisions are being made behind closed doors at this very moment, and the main intrigue: what happens next? Is this just a temporary tightening of the screws, or is it a sign that something serious is changing within the system? Let's break it down further.
The oppressive actions of this ruthless dictator have finally crossed a line that can no longer be ignored by the world, as his blatant disregard for human rights and the rule of law has reached a point that is simply unacceptable and far beyond any reasonable measure of governance.
It appears that the system has, unfortunately and completely malfunctioned. Large-scale mass protests are currently starting to break out across various regions in Russia.
Large-scale protests.
We're going with friends and loved ones. It's time to put an end to the war in this system for freedom.
Flyers are spreading widely online, calling people to come out on March 29th to the central squares of Russian cities and protest against the current regime.
The closer the empire is to collapse, the more insane its laws become. Rally against the RKN.
Justice for all.
Everyone to Bolotnaya. Rally against the RKN.
While the global market is competing for the speed of 5G internet, Russia is returning to its roots. I
lived without the internet, and I'll keep living without it. Since
the spring of this year, in Arefia, they began to totally restrict and disconnect mobile internet.
It's hard, of course, just like for everyone, because you don't know what to expect. Being afraid of all this is normal. When you're facing the unknown, yes, it's scary, of course. It's as if it's only natural that the screws keep getting tightened.
Network problems have affected even such large cities as Moscow and St. Petersburg. People complain about a complete lack of connection, the inability to make calls, blocked services, and geolocation.
Earlier today, while I was spending time in the very heart of downtown Moscow, I discovered that I was completely unable to send any messages through the Telegram app. I soon realized that the thing which truly annoys me isn't even the simple fact of the connection failing. After all, Vladimir Putin's regime has already systematically blocked access to WhatsApp, Facebook, and YouTube. And now it seems highly probable that Telegram will be the very next platform to be shut down.
And in all likelihood, Telegram will be the next one.
We were just looking for each other for 20 minutes, right?
Yes, because my Telegram isn't working. And
our iMessage is working too. So that's why.
You could just really chat under a photo, create a shared album, and that's what we did. We made a shared album and communicate there.
All communication of the Russian occupiers at the front is tied specifically to Telegram.
That's the situation. Also, a complete blockade of Telegram in the army would likely worsen the command and communication system of the Russian forces. And it will exacerbate the existing communication problems that arose after Starlink was blocked on February 1st.
The so-called digital blockade affects not only comfort but also basic capabilities. Because without communication, people can't call a taxi, pay for purchases, or even just call their loved ones.
Everyone is affected. Ordinary people are suffering. Paying, ordering, calling a taxi, opening a map, contacting loved ones. Businesses are suffering. Delivery, logistics, couriers, communication and apps.
The authorities explain what is happening as supposedly a necessity to fight against Ukrainian drones. However, this version is falling apart at the seams. Drones continue to reach targets deep inside the country. Here they note that outages are being recorded even thousands of kilometers from the front line, even in the Far East. Experts and human rights activists are sounding the alarm. It is likely that the Kremlin is preparing to implement a system of complete isolation from the outside world. Citizens will only be allowed access to resources
After a rigorous and extensive period of evaluation, the project has finally secured the official endorsement and formal legal authorization required from the various government agencies and regulatory bodies involved in the oversight process. And
such a list already exists. The so-called Kremlin whitelist includes government websites, the public services portal, the social networks VKontakte and Odnoklasniki, the Mail.ru email service, the video hosting site RuTube, and the Messenger Max. The whitelist also includes online marketplaces on Ozon and Wildberries. Also included are the Mir payment system, the websites of major banks, and the personal accounts of mobile operators. Among the media, access is open to, in particular, RIA Novosti, RBC, the newspapers Komsomolskaya Pravda and Kommersant, as well as the TV channels VGTRK, Zvezda, and Match TV. As
North Korea wouldn't even want this. The question is,
does this help against drones? No. Does it improve your life? Also no. Does it increase control over the population? Now that it does.
Even the most ardent supporters are starting to ask whether this is really about security.
Putin is not my country and not even a state. He is an illegally elected fake president whom I did not vote for. Don't cover up Putin's schemes by claiming that everything will collapse without him. Nothing of the sort. The country is being destroyed right now by war. Thousands of people are dying and great wealth has been lost. That is why it is the duty of each of us who wants to preserve the state to demand an end to the war and to demand Putin's resignation.
It seems that the time of reckoning for Putin is approaching. And the harder he tries to seize control, the faster processes are set in motion that can no longer be stopped. At this very moment, Yerevan has made an open démarche against Moscow. Patience has snapped. The course is now set for Europe away from the Russian Federation. Putin miscalculated. The stakes are too high. The post-Soviet space, which the bunker dweller had locked up, is finally breaking free. An epic moment. Instead of a sphere of influence, it has become a zone of losses. Allies are fleeing, trust is melting away, and resources are stretched to the breaking point. And while Moscow tries to pretend that everything is under control, reality is becoming ever more apparent. Let's watch. Putin's imperial ambitions are coming apart at the seams.
I think I can add something here. Something new.
Russia's geopolitical influence is rapidly weakening. The war against Ukraine has undermined the Kremlin's standing in the world. Armenia is breaking away from Russian influence. The country seeks to deepen its partnership with the European Union. We
have passed a law to launch the process of Armenia's accession to the EU, after Georgia obtained candidate status for EU membership. This made the prospect of Armenia's EU membership tangible.
The European perspective in the future opens up quite a wide range of both economic and political privileges for Armenia itself, compared to which, of course, the prospect of cooperation with the Russian Federation looks far from attractive.
But there are several obstacles on the path to European integration. The Armenian Prime Minister openly warned European deputies about attempts to disrupt the peace process, which is opposed by certain socio-political forces within the country.
The various military units and political organizations operating in the region maintain a complex web of relationships with Moscow. Some of these groups receive explicit orders and direct funding from the Kremlin, while others are linked through intermediaries, shadow networks, or shared strategic interests. This multifaceted network ensures that their actions consistently align with the broader geopolitical goals of the Russian Federation, regardless of whether their connections are officially acknowledged or hidden behind layers of plausible deniability. The Russian Federation. These types of aggressive maneuvers will serve as the initial major warning signal for Armenia, and overall, everything could escalate to direct aggression.
Also, Armenia's European integration largely depends on.
In a very similar fashion, we are currently witnessing a series of comparable developments and analogous procedural shifts that are actively unfolding and manifesting themselves across the various landscapes and administrative regions of Georgia, reflecting a broader pattern of change that is taking place within the country's borders during this particular period of time. The complex and multifaceted nature of these various relations and connections
between Russia and Armenia have been experiencing a deep crisis after the CSTO refused to help Armenia during the conflicts. With Azerbaijan, Yerevan began to distance itself from Moscow. For Putin, this means yet another painful blow to his ambitions to maintain control over
his immediate neighbors. This ultimately became the final straw in the complex diplomatic relationship between Armenia and the Russian Federation. In the capital city of Yerevan, officials understand perfectly well that the Russian Federation imposes a wide variety of strict conditions. But simultaneously, at the very same time, it is simply not prepared to act as the kind of sovereign state that provides the essential security benefits that a dominant hegemonic power in the entire region should be expected to deliver. Therefore, today Russia appears on the one hand as a state that is not strong enough to be an ally. They are not the type of actor that Armenia can really rely on.
the geopolitical loss in Yerevan could become yet another symbol of how Russia is gradually losing its former influence over the post-Soviet space, especially in the Caucasus region.
Putin's influence in the South Caucasus has significantly weakened since the start of the full-scale war in Ukraine. The former resources that Putin can accumulate for the spread of his own policy has narrowed considerably. And we see this not only in the Caucasus, but also in Central Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. For Putin, the attack on Ukraine became a decisive factor that significantly lowered his status as an international player.
According to the publication citing an economist, the Kremlin is now trying to get rid of Pashinyan, who could lead Armenia towards even closer ties with the West. Moscow is hoping to repeat the Georgian scenario when pro-Russian forces were able to block the country's movement toward Europe. With that, we conclude our broadcast. We will continue to closely follow the most relevant events to bring them to you first. Don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.